What if I were to tell you you could take 1 tablespoon of something and help yourself lose more belly fat? Would you be interested? If so, there's a really great natural solution, and this goes beyond the typical eat less, exercise more. This talk is mainly for the person that has a slow metabolism and they need an unfair advantage. But I need to really clarify something, because people that say they have a slow metabolism actually don't have a slow metabolism. It's not that the metabolism is slow, it's just very efficient. If we take a Hummer on this side versus a hybrid Camry, what would be the main difference? Well, one is a gas guzzler and one is more efficient with its fuel. So with people that have a difficult time losing weight, their real problem is deep in the motor. The motor is just too efficient and they can go a longer period of time with less fuel, compared to someone with a so-called high metabolism. So the question is, how can we switch your motor over to a system that is more of a gas guzzler and you're in a situation where you're wasting more fuel? That would be a good goal, wouldn't it? This is probably going to be a new term for you, but it's called mitochondrial uncoupling. Well, the mitochondria is the energy factory that turns food into ATP, which is kind of like a storage form of energy. The best way to describe uncoupling, related to the mitochondria, to make it really simple, is that the mitochondria is going to make less ATP and more heat. So what's happening? Instead of making this storage form of energy, it's basically just creating a lot of heat, and that heat can be wasted. So today's talk is about discovering what you can use as a mitochondrial uncoupler. Now there's a certain weight loss drug, which I don't even think it's still in the market in the US. It's called 2,4-dinitrophenol, but we're just going to call it DNP. This is a drug, and if I'm not mistaken, it was taken off the market because yes, it helped people lose weight very fast, but it created some pretty serious side effects, like it overheated the body, people were sweating extensively. Aspirin, by the way, is another mitochondrial uncoupler which I'm not going to recommend, even though it may help you lose a little weight because it's a drug and it causes side effects like a bleeding ulcer, but other than that it's perfectly fine. Now there's another drug called niclosamide, which is a dewormer, and it's also been tested to help lose weight. But it too does what's called mitochondrial uncoupling. Now the question is there a natural mitochondrial uncoupler? And yes, there is. The first thing that can help is increase something called resveratrol. Now what's interesting about resveratrol is that it is in several things. It's in grapes, cranberries, it's in blueberries, it's also in dark chocolate, it's in pistachios, and it's especially in something called Japanese knacweed. They make that into a tea, and they do have resveratrol in a powder, so if you're going to take a tablespoon a day, that could help you. But what's interesting about resveratrol and all the berries that I just mentioned is that they're all polyphenols, and even in the chocolate, it's loaded with polyphenols. Now remember when I talked about that drug, 2,4-dinitrophenol, apparently there's an interesting connection between phenols. Polyphenols and just regular phenols apparently can create a mitochondrial uncoupling effect. Other ways to increase mitochondrial uncoupling and burn fat is that there's some other things that can create this uncoupling as well, and they are ketones. This is probably one of the reasons why people lose more weight when they do the ketogenic diet. And of course, ketones actually help the mitochondria just work better in general. Then we have cold therapy. Think about what happens when you do cold immersion or cold shower. The core temperature needs to always be constant, and your body is going to fight like heck to keep that core temperature at 98.6, so think about how much heat you'd have to generate to do that. And when you're doing cold immersion, you're not exercising, you're not eating differently, you're just experiencing a lot of uncomfortableness, and you're generating a tremendous amount of heat, and you're burning a lot of fat. Then we have another one called exercise. That's right, exercise helps the mitochondria waste energy. Fasting is another way of creating uncoupling. Green tea has a mild effect of mitochondrial uncoupling, and even doing a sauna or a jacuzzi, it creates a similar effect to mitochondrial uncoupling. Now on the flip side, what are some things that will block this mitochondrial uncoupling? That would be important to know. Number 1, excess calories. Think about it, when you eat too much, and what I mean too much, is I'm talking about you're eating excess of what your mitochondria can burn. You inhibit this mitochondrial uncoupling, and you worsen the mitochondria. This could be eating way too many carbs, too much sugar, like the average person, but it can also mean eating too much fat. This is something I rarely talk about, but I think it's important not to overeat, because you're forcing your body to overload that mitochondria and your body can't burn it off. Now if you exercise a lot, then you need to eat more. But how many people are eating just too much for their activity level and their age? This also includes the snacking. This is why fasting is a really great strategy as well. As you get older, we have less mitochondrial uncoupling, and the more sedentary you are, the less effect you're going to create with this uncoupling. The more you're exposed to heavy metals, that can also block the mitochondria. And certain medications, especially statins, beta blockers, metformin, and antibiotics,